Hello everyone, this is Mark Blanton from the Real South Africa, and we have a great story for you guys. Obviously, we're telling our stories from the African perspective, and of course, you can always come and visit the Real South Africa, just get in contact with us. But of course, we would love for you guys to subscribe to our channel right now. As you guys know, this is Mark Blanton from the Real South Africa, and we're here with a PhD candidate here in South Africa. She's an art historian as well. Excuse me, art creator as well. I just found that out. Yeah. So I'm gonna let you introduce yourself to these people. Tell them who you are. Tell them where you come from. Tell them what country you belong to. Because a lot of people outside the country don't see this.
Okay. Hi everybody, my name is Nkulueko Khumalo, but everybody knows me as Nkuli. That's a short version of my name. You can't pronounce it. It means freedom, but everybody calls me Nkuli. It makes it easier for everybody to understand. I come from the Vaal region, which is currently called Sedibeng. It is south of Johannesburg.
Yeah.
And what else?
Vaal is like over hunters.
No, opposite direction. Ours is closer to here, actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was just playing. I knew where it was.
Yeah. What else do we do?
So you said that you was telling me that the Vaal. Obviously, you guys know where it is.
Okay. As I indicated, it's south of Johannesburg. But it stands on its own in terms of it holds a lot of political history. I spoke about Wilberforce. Wilberforce is a school which was part of during the apartheid years, where South Africans were only allowed to. Are you gonna edit that?
No, keep going. She's the owner, so she can do what she wants.
Yeah. So what happened is during the apartheid years, black people were only allowed to be teachers, nurses, or policemen. And Wilberforce produced accountants, lawyers, doctors.
Wilberforce.
Yes, Wilberforce. So what happened is all these prominent people that you see, from Abo Nelson Mandela, Abo, I won't say Jacob Zuma, Abo, even our neighboring country, Mugabe studied from Wilberforce, And my own dad, who is a retired photojournalist, and Alf Khumalo, they all come from Wilberforce. So I'm looking at the people that it produced, and that's when I took an interest in terms of investigating more about this, the Vaal region.
Yeah.
And I found a lot of things where...
First of all, where is it? Which province is it?
It's part of Gauteng.
It is.
Yes, it's part of Gauteng.
Yeah.
So from Johannesburg, you need to be going south.
Yes.
So towards the Vaal River, but you don't get to the Vaal River. So it's between Vereeniging and Walkerville. So it's an in-between area.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's quite hidden, but in terms of history, it played a huge role.
Okay.
In that I found out that other day, I was shocked because we only celebrate in shotgun shooting, every year, human rights on the 21st. But then I realized that actually, before there was shotgun shooting and another shooting, the protest started in Everton. And it's the history which is still not properly captured within our history, within our political history. There was the bus strike, and there was the potato strike, where people striked and they didn't buy potatoes. And the bus strike played such a huge role because for months they refused to take the bus because the bus fares were taken several times, So, and
you know that happened in the U.S. as well.
Yes, I know.
We did that too.
I know, but that's a funny part about the whole thing. I was Googling one of the presentations. I was like, which year? Because I'm doing this exhibition, the pop-up exhibitions, and I want to link them to the struggle. Then there was the bus strike, and then he keeps taking me to the US. I'm like, no, I want South African. I mean, we know the movie of the bus strike. That made us aware what was happening in America. But without that movie, some of us then we're not so much clued up.
Yeah.
So I think it's also very prominent, all these things that are coming up, especially in terms of history, they become accurate. You know, they tell the real story, not the glorified selling of movies and whatever.
Yeah.
So it's very, very important and crucial. So yes, as I was saying, so then there was the potato strike that I spoke, and then there were also the riots. But this was after the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, and the 80s. And what was the most fascinating? The role of women in Everton. And for me, they held their homes, you know. They were part of the agriculture, they were part of leadership, they were part of the organizing team. If you wanted things done, you needed to go to the women in Everton for you to organize strikes, to make sure everything is in order. And yet, history is not documenting these women from Everton.
Somebody's going to go look this up.
Yes.
Okay, so you have to have some specific references, but
because I think as well they did not buy a lot of things. They were farming. Everybody, let me say, for example, if the Khumalos are farming mealies, at the Mavimbelas doing potatoes, as an example, at the whoever they're doing tomatoes. So there was almost like agriculture within, and they also had their own water, which is something now they're fighting because they're charging them for water, the municipalities, and they say, but we made sure we've got our own water. We had our own system, but why are you charging us for this? Exactly. And he said, and the beauty of it all, how they came together. It wasn't like, oh no, you the Khumalo family, what's happening? You don't even, I mean, places that are happening now, they don't even know their names. You know, you can live next to somebody and not know if they're a serial killer or if whatever they're running. Because people don't know anything. Like you go to Everton, I'm looking for Everton. No. Everybody knows. Everybody. Whether you might not know who's staying in the yard, but you know which family. It's the Mapunelas there, it's the Dimas there, it's the Msambis. So everybody knows everybody. And everybody makes sure that they have common goals and their love of making sure that the places that they live in, it's taken care of. And as I investigated more, as my dad was narrating the story, he was telling me that, you know, Everton, they almost lost Everton. And he says they used to give them beer all the time so that they can sign. They were supposed to be relocated to Brits at the time. Exactly.
I know what that is.
So what happened is one day, one of the guys said, no, I don't want to read. I want to read this document. And when he read the document, he read that no, they're being relocated to Brits. And he refused to sign. And yet other people have already started signing.
So all the people in Brits didn't read it. They just took the beer.
I think when you...
I would be living in Brits right now. I'm just saying.
Like beer, I'm there.
Yeah, but it was the oppressor at the time, you know. They will derail you with stupid things like alcohol. You don't know because you are under the influence. And then this guy said, no, let me read this. But that's when everybody stood firm and they fought for Everton that we want this land. Till this day, even our own government is not even taking care of Everton because they say they're one of the richest people who owned land during the apartheid years. And it's amazing that, I mean, we're living in the post-apartheid and you're thinking that from the political background of the role that Everton, from the educational to the struggle to everything that they've done in terms of liberation of this country, the first place that for me personally, I feel that they should have had is Everton. But the beauty of the houses, as much as they've aged, the houses tell a story, you know. And as I'm researching the history of Everton, I'm finding out the role of women again. And funny enough, my grandmother, who lives in Small Farm, which was all part of Everton, and as my dad narrated the story, I was like, no, my dad couldn't read. I was like, your dad couldn't read, but he owned such a big land, you know? And he's like, no. My mother had to teach my dad how to read because he got tired of all the kids when they come back and say, come here, come and read for me a letter. And some of the letters are quite personal, you know? So he says, no, our mother could read. So she taught my grandfather how to read. And I was like,
now, let me ask you this. So like, what year time frame are we talking about? We're talking about the 70s, the 80s?
The 50s, 60s, 70s, you know. Because I was born in the 1980s, so I never knew my grandfather. I just remember my grandmother passed away when I was like 4 years old. So I guess it was before my time.
Yeah.
So you
don't remember the 70s? Man, that was a good time.
Maybe my prophetic gift could still. So some of the stories you get it from your aunts, some of it my uncle before he passed away, and the role of churches. In a way, some of these women were playing a role, as much as that they belonged to churches. But they were having a lot of underground things that they were doing, you know, and then they hide behind this uniform and church. And I'm thinking to myself, wow. I mean, we criticize a lot of churches now, you know, even though I'm a Christian. And as well, when you tell me about the church that wears uniform, and I'm like, no, I can't be wearing. I can't be wearing uniform. The role of these churches and the women as well. So yeah, and I'm Zulu.
Are you?
Yes, I'm very much Zulu.
I would have never guessed that.
Seriously.
Okay. Now I wanted to say.
Thank you. Okay, so you're Zulu.
Yes. But I'm born in Gauteng, so I'm a Zulu from Gauteng, born in the Vaal, born and bred in the Vaal. So yes, I did move to Johannesburg and I realized this is not my scene, And I realized I love the Vaal. It's an untapped market. It's got a lot.
So people should be investing in it. Would you say or business in time?
Okay, let me tell you. First, it's got steel, which within the bar we've got the metal steel. We've got Anglo-Americans that base some coal is based in the bar. We've got Sasolburg, which kind of falls in the bar. It's under Free State, it's on the border of the Vaal and the Free State. So we've got it's a very industrial area, you know. But we also have the first peace treaty that was signed in the Vaal. When Nelson Mandela got out of prison, he came to the Vaal. Then it's got, which I indicated in terms of the bus strike, the potato strike, the human rights, which is part of the Shan, you know, also comes from the Vaal. And then we've got the three rivers running through. Do you understand? And the three rivers, that's fine. So we've got the three rivers running through, we've got the Vaal, and it's got the most beautiful sceneries that you can ever see. The sun rises and the sun sets, you know. It depends how deep you go into the Vaal, then you get a lot of pollution. But the further you move away from the Vaal, the nicer it becomes. But yet, as well, you also find a lot of, as much as there are good parts, but there's also poverty as well. You know? So,
but it's coming up, I'm sure.
So
pretty fast.
Yeah. So there's beauty as well, but as well in terms of coming back to Everton, how some of the structures in the houses were built. I mean. After my uncle passed away, we were sharing the bill. And when we go to the municipality, we realize that we've got this land, but the houses that are belonging there, they're not even registered.
So they just built them and you tell them about it.
Exactly.
So that's what we do.
Yeah. So So, and my grandfather was quite clever because he built all his children houses within the yard, you know, and then they had the pit where they would get water and they would get all these. And it's a lot of those houses in Everton where you've got the original structure and then all the other houses are not registered, you know. So, and then you think to yourself, I'm like, wow. And you cannot fight those laws because people came from wherever they come from and they said, we want land, we want to give our children a better future than what we had. I mean, that's a common way of parenting. But as well, now as I'm doing this project of Everton, they say, no, we used to own our own vegetables. And now there's a lot of shacks. We're owning shacks because they're using now shacks to rent because for them it's rent coming in so that we can survive. So then what happened to that working together? Is that the older people, the more they die, the more the new children, it's either they move away or new people come in, rent out the spaces. So they don't have that same common goal anymore. And the stand owners of Everton no longer live there, majority of it. If they're not deceased, they no longer live there, or the kids are no longer interested. Yeah, or they're no longer interested. But you realize as you're speaking to somebody, it's like, oh no, I come from Everton. It's like, huh? You know, why aren't you doing something about it? You know, why aren't you planting back? Trying to bring back, revive what Everton used to stand for.
Following along.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was an interesting story when you were talking about it, and then I'm sitting here thinking, you know, from our perspective, that, you know, these are stories that we don't know. There's probably a lot of South Africans that don't know. And then there are other South Africans in other towns or townships that have a similar story that don't know you guys exist. So you'd be surprised how many people, you know, see what we're doing or see our content and be like, hey, you know, I need to reach out to, you know, to this town and see what's going on. And then, of course, from our perspective, being U.S. citizens or whatever they call us, those are stories that we want to hear, because some of those stories, as you say, people that are riding the bus, which is one of our stories, and so forth. So we do relate.
Similarities as well.
And then we do realize that we're basically the same in a lot of ways, and there should be no reason why we should not be coming together, minimally as coming over here as tourists and visiting and spending money and building and getting involved and what's going on, you know, here in South Africa. So
what also enticed me, the architectural structures of those houses. It's like you don't understand. They're like, as much as they've aged, that age of them, like, it tells a story. The house itself, it's almost it's a character on its own, you know. And I was telling Tabele, it's like, telling you need to come and document these houses before people are breaking them down, bringing these modern structures. And for me, it's one of those things that some of these things you can't break it down. And the shacks, it's not like the shacks that they're doing now. You can have a shack, but that shack, it's done with dignity. You could see it's got character, it's got history, it's not just a normal shack where you just buy a shack and you just dump it big. No, even the type of shacks that they were doing, it tells a story, because a lot of these shacks back in the days, in your yard, when you had a shack, people will look at you. You'd only bring a shack in the yard if it was, what do you call this? A church, you know, a church starting to develop as well. But as well, there's a church called the Lord McCamel Church in Everton.
okay.
And we've got Dr. Nkulueko Khumalo, who wrote about Wilberforce and the Lord McCamel Church. And the role of this church that he played. And the founder of the church had a prophetic gift. And one of the ladies that I met, I think like 4 weeks ago, she was telling me her story of her family with the Lord McCamel Church. She's like, no, my brother was dead, like, completely dead. They went and fetched the Lord McCamel, the father to Lord McCamel that we know now. And he says he prayed. This man prayed till my brother was brought back to life. And yeah, exactly. But you know, that's the funny part. There's a lot of such stories within. And another story that my uncle told me before he passed away he said to me, when he was young, he got very, very sick. Then they took him to Mama Manku. Mama Manku was one of the prayer warriors. She also had a prophetic gift. And he says, I was on my deathbed. I can't remember how old he was as he was narrating the story. He says, she prayed for me. She's like, no, this child has got a prophetic gift. He's going to travel nations and he's going to travel the world. Just continue telling my grandmother, just continue praying for him, he'll be fine. And he says, I remember my mother looking at her like, this woman, she's not doing something right. I brought this child because he's sick. And now she's telling me I need to pray. You know? And he says, I survived. He says, it only hit me when I was in America, covering Muhammad Ali's boxing thing. That the prophecy went out 30 or 40 years ago. I'm sitting in America, traveling the world with my photography. And he said, that's when I realized that this woman was gifted. It's like I didn't realize it then. I thought, and my mom also thought, and now it's happening, you know. So you get a lot of such stories, people who've got testimonies of the role of churches, of these prophetic. You remember, we've got the missionary churches, and then we've got the African churches. Do you understand? Yeah. And these African churches, as much as we've got Amasangoma's ancestral worshipping, when the missionaries came in, South African traditions were oppressed in terms of that. So what did they do? They went into churches. They were prophesying using, now yes, they're not using the sangomas and whatever, but using the Christianity way of the prophetic gifts, you know. So then I'm starting to think, and I'm thinking, I'm raised in the charismatic churches, I never believed in all these, and now I'm starting to question my ways of, you know, of religion. And the role of religion that it also played in the apartheid years. And I'm going revisiting some of these places that are, it's either walk past, or maybe I was being naughty when I was a child, or going and peeping and seeing. And I'm thinking, wow, that's how I'm walking past. I didn't know all these as a child. You know, I would walk from small farm to Everton because we were going to play by the river or by the stream somewhere there, or some auntie down the road. I know she's going to give us cookies. And we always found ways. And then now I'm looking at it, I'm driving, life has changed.
You're living at it totally different.
Exactly. And I'm thinking, wow. You know? But that's the thing, I will never change my childhood for anything. Do you understand? The beauty of playing. I mean, the other day during lockdown, I was teaching my child how to play tennis. You know? And I'm thinking, and I'm like, you need to jump. And the beauty of games, the beauty of even storytelling. It's something that we learned in school because we had never had stations, we never had cell phones, and we'll draw. You go, and then I'll go and visit you drawing, walking, and things. And it's things that kids of today, they're not going to experience. You know?
I tell you what's funny, we was at a friend's house here in South Africa, and he was talking about this game, and he said, snakes and ladders. I said, snakes and ladders? What's snake? And he started explaining it to me. He said, no, you roll the dice and you move and you jump on the thing and you go up. I said, no, in the States we call it shoots and ladders. Oh. Same game, except on the board you guys have snakes that you land on the snake and you go down. Yeah, and for us it was a ladder. I think a ladder is shooting. It was a shoot, like you jump on it and shoot and go down. So, you know, I
similarity.
Yeah, and I just use that, like, you know, I don't think that we're any different than us in America and us, you guys here in Africa or in South Africa. I don't think that we're any different, and we find a lot of similarities because we got the benefit of being in the U.S. As many years as we were, and then here as many years as we've been versus most South Africans. They haven't been to the U.S. They maybe seen something on TV, but they don't understand like how we grew up and how similar things are. A lot of things that you mentioned are things that we grew up the same way.
Talk about going from this place to this place and running down by the river and playing. I'm like, that was you had to be outside.
That's
true.
true.
Literally put you in the house for.
Yeah.
If you never have the TV on, you can come back when the sun go down, but you need to be outside. If you could really just go get into something, you did know who had the cookies, because there was a lady that had the cookies. Like, if I go to her house, she's gonna have some cake or something. Like, you just go back, hi. She's like, oh, you're like, yeah. So those things are very similar. Like if you don't talk to anyone across the big pond, like you would never know that we really are that similar. And I think that it's simply because when they took us from the continent, a lot of those things that make us the same just kind of carried on. Like you go to your neighbor's house and you act up and whatever the case may be. So you have that thing you talk about having like house in the same way.
Yeah.
Like he laughs at me all the time because that's pretty much how my family is. We have everybody comes in the same space, and if you get in trouble, you go to that house.
I know, I've been kicked out of the house several times.
That's what you do. So I think a lot of those things carried over, whether we knew it or not. But to get back here and hear that it really lasted that long on that side and come back here, it's like, okay, good. So you know it's like you get to run from a whooping.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've been whooped several
Yeah.
times. I've jumped fences.
Yes.
I've hidden. I think I've done it all.
Yes.
I've climbed on the trees. And the other day, my sister's like, "Oh, my mom passed away last year." So my sister goes, my aunt goes, as she's giving the speech, she's like, "Out of all my mom's children." Everybody looks at me. And I also thought they're going to mention my name. And she's like, "Tembi." No. And I'm like, "Tembi, the baby." And I'm like, "No, not Tembi." And I'm like, "Yeah." And then I'm like, "No, I'm actually the baby."
You're the baby.
Yeah,
Okay,
almost the baby. Yeah, she's older than me.
Okay.
Yes, I am. Yes, I am. So everybody is like, "Oh, she was the naughtiest one." I'm like, "Timmy." Everybody was like, "Timmy." And then she was taking like that. No, people will be crying. Timmy will look. She said, when they go to the house to go and fetch something, Timmy will go and steal the meat. And I was laughing because it's something that I think I just never got caught. So she got caught. And yet everybody else, both of them getting. So it was one of those things that I was laughing. And I was like, "Oh." And my mom goes, "Oh, what's happy?" And I'm laughing because like every single time. I was like, they noticed my mom was like, you. But I think it's who she told the stories to.
I understand.
Do you understand? So then I was like, "Wow." It's just like the only one. And I was like, "Woo."
She's like, I didn't get caught.
I know.
So y'all don't know about me.
So when you say similar stories,
Absolutely.
I think we all have those stories.
I think that's what makes us makes being here so easy, because we are able to have this conversation. It's like, you remember that time? It's like, yo, I got a story for you. I love it. I love every
But it's great for us because, like I said, we're fortunate enough to be here, get a chance to obviously chat with you and bring a story forward for somebody to listen to. Obviously, it'll be posted. People will be in the comments writing their comments, and it's awesome. And people want to know, what's really going on, here in South Africa. It's not just one story.
Yeah,
that's true.
It's not just one story.
True. And we need people like you. We always say all the time that, like, as Africans or African Americans or as South Africans, like, we have to tell our own stories. Yeah. So I applaud you for taking up that mantle and saying that you really want to tell the story, not just of the history, but of the people going forward. So thank you for taking up that mantle. That's what
made me actually start doing this. Because what happened is, as I was doing my master's, I'm researching. Actually, I've been, as I indicated, I was commissioned so many times, and I didn't even know that I do the research well, because I guess the even kept on referring me to do the research. And then one day, I'm commissioned, I think it was in 2009, to write about Black people in the bar, the artists in the bar. There was nothing, absolutely nothing. And I'm like, there's no ways. I know about Kamakul, I know that I couldn't think of artists, and who. When I was growing up, they were artists, So why are they not in history? Again, history written from a white point of view. And do you understand? So my master's was actually no, it's the truth in South Africa. Do you understand? So my MA was questioning that yes, there was noteworthy history written about Black people, but as well, when a Black person does artworks, it's called township art. But when a white person does, it's not called. Why is it not called urban art? Because they live in the suburbs. So I'm now starting questioning the labeling of this township art. That's like devaluing. Exactly. Or you're creating an artist, and then because of certain bourgeoisie, they say no, this is craft. Who decides Do you understand?
Yeah.
So I started questioning, why are the black people within the Vaal region missing in the noteworthy research in literature? And as I'm looking and I'm reading, and I'm reading my predecessors that I used to reference as I was studying art, and I used to love their books till I got to tertiary. I realized, no, something is wrong. And then they have dates wrong. They have that, the simplest thing, not even properly documented.
Wow.
So again, and then you get to go to conferences and you get attacked. Why didn't black people write about themselves? I'm thinking, we were disadvantaged. Really, if I had the same opportunities you had, I wouldn't be sitting here. So that's a beauty that I started saying, no, we're visible. Artists within the Vaal region, we're visible. There's Ababu Tatumacheta, there's Babu Bontumatus, and Babu Bontumatus. He's the most saddest story. He went to Rockstrift and studied art. It's a missionary school, and he doesn't even own one of his own artwork. Not even one. He had a sold out show every time he put up his work. Sold out every week, and he doesn't even own one of his work. Just before he passed away, we did an exhibition, the one I was talking about in 2009, I think, if I'm right. And I said, Tate Bongi Matisa, please do artworks for this exhibition. It was a 3-year course at Rockstrift. At the second year, they're like, there's nothing we can teach you. You know everything. It's actually, you put us to shame. Yeah. That's what he was told. And this is not the story that I got from him. Wow. I got from other people who were his classmates and at Rockstrift. Do you understand? And I'm thinking, this man's works are everywhere, yet he doesn't even own his own works during that time. And those are the saddest stories of because he needed the money. Then you've got Nkulueko Khumalo, Diniso. He's an artist. He studied visual art, but nobody knows him as a visual artist. They know him as a performance art. He owns a theatre within the Vaal, which when we do exhibitions, we commission him to come and do performance. It's like stage performance. He does it beautiful. And I'm thinking, Babu Kamakuli, are you sure you are a visual? And when he showed me his portfolio, I was like, no. He decided to close his portfolio. I was like, why? The story behind it, it's also fascinating. Yeah. He says, I sold this artwork. During the apparative years, the artwork sold for 300 rand.
Oh my God.
300 rand in today's number is about $17, $18.
Next thing, he goes to that same place, his work is sold for a few weeks later, his work has been sold for 1,002. He says, he asked himself, 4 times more. He says, is the video the work or the frame? Because now the work is frame.
Yeah.
He says, no, he's going to close his portfolio.
I understand.
Yeah. And then, and funny enough, a couple of weeks ago, as I'm going interviewing another photographer, doing another project, I go to this guy. I tried to buy some of his works. I cannot afford them yet. I said, I may buy his works. And it's good. So I go to this, I'm interviewing this guy. He's a photographer. He was my dad's colleague. And then as a photographer, he also owned his own framing studio. And then he says, as he's showing his works, I haven't even seen them yet. I was like, that's what Nkulueko's work, the signature. He says, I don't know whose work is that. Somebody came, brought the works to me, friend never came to pay me. Give me the money. So I ended up buying 4 artworks. And then I go, drive to Babu Kamakulu's house, travel. He started his own art school in the Vaal in the 80s. Art school, being a black man. Okay. In Shambo. Yeah, because he's ex-students, the students who are coming from his school, you don't need to ask which school you come from. He taught his students confidence, own your space, take charge of whatever you are doing. And immediately when you associate anyone who comes from his school, you don't have to ask. I bet you about Kamakulu. And then they're like, why? They are go-getters, they've got ambition, they're hungry, they don't just give up. You don't get that. So I think that's the beauty of him, and his story. And why I felt that I need to tell his story, because he has done remarkable work and not even recognized.
Yeah.
Do you understand? So I go drive, I brag. He says, that work doesn't belong to you. It needs to come to this collection. I said, no, Babu Kamakulu, I'm still going to get those other two. So my collection can be filled. And the funny of names as well, nicknames, you know. Babu Kamakulu then, he was known as July. He's got 4 or 5. No, that's the funny part. He's born in September.
Okay.
But it's that thing of names. If there's something happening at that time, the parents will adopt the name and then give it to the child, you know. I mean, I've got a cousin who's called Half Day.
What?
And the story behind it's a beautiful story. The children were not living long, and then he lived half a day.
Oh,
And then he's like 60 now, and he's still called Half Day. And all of us said, we would have changed that name a long time ago, you know. So it's the beauty, the story behind the name. He's called July, and then others call him Papi, and then I call him Babu Kamakulu, others call him Brakamas, and he's got 4 different IDs.
Oh no, he doesn't.
I promise you. And one he says, I got bored, then I changed my ID. The story even behind the ID, he's 60, I think 64 or 60. He's quite young. He's got the beard and everything. And he says, the day, he doesn't have a driver's license, and he drives.
Don't put him out there like that.
But that's the beauty. He says, no, I always tell them, I'm going to arrest an old man. So it's the beauty. He's constantly performing, you know. And I enjoy his stuff. He will chase you away if you don't honor his appointment or you don't deliver. He says, I don't have time for people who are going to waste my time. So you know your story when you go there. So you need to be committed. So to a point where I was telling Melanie, who is my name, I said, you know, I will go to Babu and I know he's going to chase me away when I come. So I need to know my story. So he teaches you to responsibility and make sure that your word.
It's done. Yes.
Make sure that your word is worth something. And don't just say things for the sake of saying, because he says no one will take you seriously. And that's how we were raised. That let your word have value. That when you say you're going to do something, do it. Or else just shush, don't do it. So those are those principles that we were raised on, you know. And people now, they'll say something and mean the opposite of that. And
you got to figure out what they're trying to say.
You understand? Yeah, so I think as well, coming back to the vow, it has a lot of declare. I don't know if you know declare. It's from the vow. I don't know. So you get a lot of people. There was the woman who taught art in Wilberforce. And art then, we were all artists. I always say we were all born artists. Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks. No, I'm still busy with that. Yeah. No, I eat slow and I cook slow. So, yeah. So it has a lot of stories. It has so many stories.
I love it.
Like you can stay maybe a whole month. And even Toba's mom. I promise you, when I heard about Toba's mom, I fell in love with. And funny enough, my dad has been involved in Toba and them's family, but yet we've never met. It's one of those people when they come and visit, like, oh, my parents are there. You make tea and leave. You don't get involved. You know. And now that I'm older and I'm wiser, I feel like I've missed an opportunity to have learned so much more. And as I'm speaking to Tara, narrating the story of my mom, because everywhere I went, no, have you been to, as I'm doing this research, have you been to the Mafimbelas? I'm like, what is so important about the Mafimbelas? That is, everybody feels like I need to know about the Mafimbelas. Then I meet Vusi. Vusi says, you need to meet my sister. I'm thinking, why's everybody referring me to everybody? And then Vusi says, no. He tells me about his story, how he started Mauritius in Shagville. Guess what's Mauritius? You can guess.
Come on, yeah.
Nightclub in Shagville during the My point exactly. And everybody was like, no, in Mauritius. And how I learned about Mauritius, I drive to Joburg, city deep. I buy flowers every week.
Okay.
So I love flowers. I was trying to connect him with my sister to do agriculture flowers, you know.
Mhm.
I said, you cannot be living. My mother was planting her own flowers, and yet our houses don't have flowers. It doesn't. But I buy flowers every week. So I go to City Deep. I love these flowers. I'm phoning Timmy. Timmy, what flowers must I bring for you? Because every time I go, whoever goes must bring for everybody. You know, that's how it works. You go to veggies, bring for everybody else. So I was like, what flowers do you want? She's like, oh, bring a bit of yellow, a bit of peach. We love bright colors. I tell this woman, she's like, I'm not sure. This old woman, I said to her, you know, I live too far to drive back. So I'm going to buy every flower that I need because I'm not driving here till next week as I'm coming to Johannesburg. She says, where do you live? She's like, yeah. She goes, where do you live? Evan. Yo, Evan. Yo, Evan. I just took back this woman. She's like, no. And this is an old woman. She goes, yo, the proof for Evan. I looked at her, go. I'm like, this woman just became alive. How she was narrating the story of.
She was like, I used to get it in.
Exactly.
I'm like, I got you.
I'm like, yo, go. Like, I'm looking at this woman like, yo, mama.
I'm just talking about flowers. What's happening in your head right
And it's
now?
like, yo, banana. You Evan. And she comes up and says, you Evan. I'm thinking, I drive to Joburg to come and have fun. You see, telling me about the vibe.
You used to be jumping.
To get it.
I love it.
And then I was like, wow. This is before I met Lucy.
Oh, wow.
Do you understand? So I'm like, so as we're doing this, I'm telling Dr. Khumalo, he said, hi, I call him Putfus. Putfus. I met this woman. This woman is telling me about the flower. And they're laughing because we've got a conference call, you know, online meeting.
Yes.
And then they're just laughing. I'm like, okay, Putfus will go and visit him. Him and my dad, they just start talking about the olden days. No, I brought my dad. You don't take him because, I always go with him because I've realized when you knock and say, I'm doing this research, people are not opening up.
Yeah.
But the minute they see him, because they're like, yo, Mama Khumalo, you remember? He doesn't remember half of the things. But he was there, you know? he was probably covering the story or something. But how people open up when they see somebody that was there during the times. And they lighten up. Bravo says, Pralem! They call him Pralem. Pralem, you remember? I did just, sometimes he just nods for the sake of nodding. And then, but the stories, they become so beautiful. So one, Bravo says, they're both voices.
Okay.
One is a doctor, one is the Mauritius owner.
Gotcha.
The story of Mauritius is another story. He needs to tell it.
I will.
He needs to tell his story.
I will.
But my sister and I were like, bravo, see. Bravo. But he says that space was a beautiful space. He says we are not there to judge each other, but we are project planners. We had goals and deliverable. And we achieved so much. He says people looked at Mauritius as a club, but all of us who were matured, we understood what Mauritius and the purpose. We can come to Mauritius and you think, oh, it's a nightclub. She says, no. Others, it was a strategic place where we sit and I found out this. I'm like, wow. And I lived in Everton.
Wow.
It's like, how did I miss all this?
You were too busy climbing trees by the creek. You already said it. You were too busy running.
Well, I was enjoying my childhood at the time.
Well,
And I love cookies.
But this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna. That was an awesome story. People are gonna see this story,
Yeah, it's gonna be great.
and obviously we'll let you know when it comes out.
We're gonna go
It's gonna be a bunch of comments.
to the bubble now.
Yeah, it's gonna be cool. It's gonna be cool.
We'll get more.
All right, guys. I would love to hear your comments on this particular interview. I'm sure a lot of us can relate to what she was saying as far as how we grew up, the stories in our neighborhood, the things that happened. And the funny part about it, those same things happen right here in the Republic of South Africa and sunny South Africa as well. So we would love for you guys to come visit to see what it's all about, because the bottom line is, people here in South Africa are not too different from us, but however, you can come here and have a great time and, just enjoy, and they would love to meet you as well, so you can add to their story. And of course, you can take away and carry some of those stories back across the pond to America, or even if you're in the UK or in the Caribbean or wherever you find Black people. But yeah, so we hope that you enjoy, and of course, make sure that you subscribe to this channel, because we have a lot of content that's coming out, and of course, we already have content that's there. So we would love to see you, so you can, of course, help us pass this story, as this is a total grassroots movement to educate people and let people know that, hey, South Africa is a great place to come visit. See you later.
Thank you so much for spending time with us today. If you like what you saw, please subscribe, and don't forget to hit the notifications button so you don't miss out on all things The Real South Africa. Thanks again.